Welcome back to another episode of the Field of 68's 2024 NBA Draft Prospect Profiles. My name is Rob Dauster. I got Randolph Childress with me. We are presented by Unified Healing, and we're going to be talking about Pitt point guard Bub Carrington, who I think is one of the more intriguing prospects in this draft class because, for starters, I think he is the youngest guy in this draft class that is like actually projected to be a draft pick, right? He doesn't turn 19 until July. Um, and he's a guy that put up some ridiculous performances. He had a triple double in his first game. He was the reason why Pitt went and won 10 of their last 13 games, and found a way to getting within like the brink of getting to the NCAA tournament after being in a position in January where we're like, yeah, you know what? Jeff Capel's got to be fired, right? But he's also a guy where when you saw him on his worst nights, you were like, man, this dude probably like, are they going to run him out? Does he need to transfer to Duquesne after this season? Like, is he really an ACC player? So, a young guy, incredibly high ceiling when he's at his best, incredibly low floor when he's at his worst. And oh, by the way, he also is a 6'5" point guard. So, Randolph, the floor is yours. What do you make of Bub Carrington? You did a lot of Pitt games. You cover the ACC. You know that conference, and you've seen this dude play quite a bit. Break him down for me.
He's going to go a lot higher than you think because I feel as though he is so young. And I thought early on in the year, before the other kid, Low, the other point guard, got eligible, it was hard. It was too much pressure and responsibility for him on that team because he was the only guy that could create, for himself. He had to create for himself and for his teammates. The other thing about him is why his ceiling is so high. It's not just his age. Rob, this kid a couple of years ago was 6'2",
Mhm.
6'1". I mean, he just shot up, and then you're just like, man, this kid's now 6'5", 6'6". Like, what? No one could believe that he had grown up so fast and grown up so much. I think that it's just enticing to see what he is from that standpoint. You're like, you don't even know if the kid stopped growing yet. He provides the ability to big games, big moments. I don't know if he's ready yet to be a your starting point guard yet. I think
Right.
the biggest thing I used to remind him of when I talked to him would say he still plays like he's 6'1". Like he doesn't know. And he's looked at me when I said that. I said, you're still jumping and passing, and I'm like, you're 6'6", dude, coming off a ball screen. There's no shot blocker. I would tell him against certain teams, I'm like, just come off and make the read. He will come up and jump. I'm like, the guy's guarding you is 6'1". You don't need to jump to throw it over him. So it's just little things like that. All of this is so new to him. You're talking about 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, he just wasn't this highly touted kid. It's so much has come so fast for good reason. So there's a lot to like about him. I think even if you miss with him as a point guard, he has the size, unlike the other guys, to slide to the wing. And I think
Mhm.
at 6'5", he can play. So I think physically, he just provides you so much with a secondary ball handler. More of a mid-range shooter right now offensively, but streaky from behind the three-point line. I think all those things will come. I like him over a lot of the guards that we discussed, and I think someone will take him, particularly in this draft early, and kind of stash him away and develop him into a point guard just to kind of see what they have. And if not, knowing the worst case scenario, they have a willing wing or guard to kind of groom for the future with him. But I'm a huge fan of his, and I think he'll surprise some people, I believe, with how high he goes in this draft.
Yeah, I think that the jumper is projectable, right? He only shot 32% from three this past season,
Yep.
41% from the floor. And he had some like rough night. He had some
Yes.
like 0 for 7, 0 for 8 nights from three. But he was a very, very good pull-up shooter. And he finished in the 85th percentile as a pick and roll scorer and in the 90th percentile on synergy, when you do pick and rolls, including the passes that he threw out of pick and rolls. So I think that you can project that scoring out, but again, you're probably drafting him for 2 years down the road. I think that's the amount of time that you need. Uh, what do you make of him defensively, right? Because he's big, but he's not really the most explosive dude. Like he's more of like a smooth, fluid athlete than he is someone that you would expect to be like, the switching and guarding bigger guys and then this like superior athletic beast that a lot of like when you think of 6'5" point guards in the NBA, you're thinking of a lot of those guys that are athletic monsters.
He's not going to overwhelm you physically, but he's again, like I said before, Rob, the issue he has is it sounds crazy to say it, but you understand what I mean. Being 6'6" is new to him.
Mm-hmm.
He's not the kid that's been big for his age all of his life, and then this is just happening. This is a new thing to him, and I think him growing in and understanding and playing like a big guard. I mean, and that's people that understand basketball know that there's a massive difference in playing as a 6'6" point guard and then playing as a 6'1" or 6'2" guy. I mean, you just see things naturally, passes that are there, you're able to make. You're able to throw over top of the defense and snap it with less air under the ball. You're able to put when guys get on your hip at 6'6", you're not getting back in front of that guy. You're not gonna, you can overpower him now because of his age and because of his as he gets stronger. But as he develops, like you said, in 2 to 3 years, we don't know what his ceiling could be because of that size. And again, he's had those moments. It's just so new to him. I mean, I think that's the problem you're going to have. He's never, and he's sliding into, if you're going to make him a point guard, he reminds me of, we talked about this last year with Hood Schifino. He goes to school and then all of a sudden he plays with Johnson. And then it's like, oh man, Johnson gets hurt. Xavier Johnson gets hurt and then he plays the point guard. Then you're like, all right, wait a minute now. You go from a wing to now this kid flourished as a point guard. He was kind of the point guard that was just too much on his plate. And then when Lowe got put in the lineup and he was able to not have so many primary responsibilities, he just flourished. I don't think the athleticism will overwhelm him. He probably settled too much. Again, he needs to learn and get comfortable playing like a 6'6" point guard, going to the rim. He can get down there and finish. He just settled too much last year. I just part of again, I've said this to him before, and he even admitted that in talking to him and his dad. This is not only was the stardom new to him, you're talking about the size is new. It's hard to change just in a quick period of time of, shooting the jumpers and settling at 6'1" because you can't get down there and finish, and then turning the corner at 6'6" with his vision and the passing ability on a team at Pitt that wasn't the most talented team offensively, and had they not struggled early on, was an NCAA team. And you can make the argument they still could have should have been in the tournament by the end. So I'm a huge fan because I think somebody's going to draft him really high, stash him. A ton of improvement, but his ceiling is really high of what he is. His makeup, grown up around the game, been a player. Obviously, Melo's a really good friend of his. You can imagine he'll be in the gym. You growing up playing for Team Melo out of Baltimore. His dad's a baller, former baller, hooper. This kid will be around some talented guys, and I'm a huge fan of Bub Carrington. Not only because I know him personally, I just know what he is, and I think he'll definitely put the work in. He just needs to be patient, and he's just a young kid, like you said, it's the youngest kid in the draft.
Whether you are a world-class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all understand the importance of mental and physical well-being and proper recovery for top-notch performance. After a 6-month season loaded with cross-country travel, I can promise you that proper recovery is a priority for me these days. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring this episode of the Field of 68. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or the EE system. If you haven't heard of the EE system yet, you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Whether you're here in New Jersey or at one of the hundreds of other locations across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. If you're interested in experiencing the EE system technology for yourself, go to unifiedhealing.com/unified68 to learn more and find a center near you. That's UNIFYD healing.com/UNIFYD, the number 6, the number 8. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or as a substitute for professional medical advice. diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, including the EE system. The comparison that I have, for a best case, like if he hits his ceiling, if all of this stuff comes together, I think he's got a little D'Angelo Russell in his game. Now I don't know if he's going to end up being, when D'Angelo was at his best for, I think his best years were like the Warriors. There was that string where he played for like the Nets and then the Warriors and the Timberwolves in like a 4-year stretch, right? And he was averaging 20 something a game and like 6.5 or 7 assists. And I'm not sure if Bub is going to be that guy, but I think we're looking at someone that could be a 17 point per game scorer and average 6 assists and a couple rebounds and make like 35 to 40% of his threes and get to the foul line. I think that is well within his range of outcomes if it all comes together for him as a player.
I won't argue against it. I think they'll, D'Angelo probably shot it a little better coming out.
Mhm.
Uh, really quick release. But like again, when Bub figures it out, let's just say hopefully he sticks to it and he figures it out and gets with the right, again, the theme we talked about, getting with the right team that's going to develop and be patient with him and put him in a position to be successful. But he's going to be a heck of a player, man. A secondary ball handler for you, get you in your offense, can play multiple guard spots. I mean, he's going to provide a level of versatility that'll see him on the floor. He's probably got to get a little better at playing without the ball in his hand, which is, I think, is easier to do with some guys when you're not dominating the ball. I just think he can help you earlier than people think if he physically holds up, which is, a challenge. Again, he's 18 years old and an extremely young guy. But if you stash him for a year or two, like you said, you can have yourself a hell of a player.
Yeah. And now I don't think that he's necessarily the same level of player as the guy that I'm about to mention, but I do see some similarities in the sense that he is capable of kind of getting where he wants to go, even if it doesn't look like he necessarily has the athleticism to be able to do what he just did. And that's Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I don't think he's going to be a guy that averages like 38 and 8 and is in the MVP conversation in the NBA, right? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the way that Shea can kind of get to the spots that he wants to get to, Bub's got a little bit of that in his game too.
I agree with you. I love that comp, and I could, because I understand what you're saying. You're not
Mhm.
saying he's the MVP of the NBA guy, but if you watch Shea Gilgeous-Alexander play, he's more of a mid-range guy. He
Mhm.
doesn't need much space to get his shot off. He's thin. He doesn't look the strongest the guy, but he takes and makes some tough mid-range shots because that's really what he is. And when he's making threes, his ability to knock down shots is why he's just special in what he is. But no, I like the comp in that because he is a big guard like that, and really his strength is being a mid-range guy. Like getting to his pull-up game is where Bub is probably most comfortable right now.
Yeah, and if you're drafting him, you're probably getting him, let's just say 20s, like is
Yeah.
probably the most likely outcome for where he ends up getting picked somewhere in the 20s. So it's a low risk investment, right? With a high ceiling if it all comes together. And if it doesn't, like, and he ends up, spending 3 years in the G League and you give him a year or two on a bench somewhere before he ends up going off somewhere else, like, it is what it is. You lost a 22nd, 23rd pick on it. And I think that he is well worth taking the risk there because of his upside if it all comes together for him. Listen, this has been fun. Randolph, always great to talk to you about, especially ACC guys. You love those ACC guards. Make sure you keep it here on the Field of 68 for the next month. We're going to have quite a bit of content coming out, about 40 of these draft prospect profiles, and we're going to be doing a live mock draft about a week or so before the draft starts. Stay tuned to the Field of 68 for more information on that coming up here soon. For Randolph Childress, my name is Rob Dauster. We'll see you guys next episode.